Hello everyone, my name is Dr. Hemraj. So here I am going to discuss in detail about the rhinitis. So in that, what is the definition of rhinitis? What are the pathophysiology behind the rhinitis? What are the etiological factors behind that rhinitis? What are the types and what is the treatment? But before going into detail of that rhinitis, we are going to discuss about the normal mucosa of the nasal cavity. So, what is a nasal mucosa or respiratory mucosa? This is a this mucosa is adherent to the periosteum or perichondrium of the nasal concha. It is a continuous with the skin through the nostril and with the mucous membrane of the nasal part of the pharynx through the choanae. From the nasal cavity, its continuity with the conjunctiva may be traced through the nasolacrimal and lacrimal ducts and with the frontal, ethmoidal, sphenoidal, maxillary sinuses through the several openings in the myiatis. The mucous membrane is the thickest, most vascular over the nasal conchae and nasal septum, but it is very thin in myiatis and on the floor of nasal cavity and in the sinuses. It is one of the most commonly infected tissue in the adults and children. Structure of mucosa. The epithelium of the nasal mucosa is of two types, respiratory epithelium and olfactory epithelium. Respiratory epithelium is lined by pseudostratified ciliated columnar epithelium. Within the epithelium and its basement membrane is a fibrous layer which is infiltrated with a lymphatics, and there will be a small nearly continuous layer of small and larger glands. The glands like a mucus or serous glands. The ducts of which glands open upon the surface. The epithelial cells of the nose fauces play an important role in the maintenance of equable temperature in the nasal cavity by the moisture with which they keep the surface always slightly lubricated. Second is olfactory epithelium. It is present in the posterior superior region of the nasal cavity. The mucous membrane is yellowish in color and the epithelial cells are columnar and non-ciliated. They are of two kinds, supporting cells and olfactory cells. The surface of mucous membrane is fine, formed by a hair-like process of olfactory cells. The other or deep processes run inwards is frequently beaded and is continued as the axons of an olfactory nerve fiber. Beneath the epithelium and extending through the thickness of mucous membrane is a layer of tubular, often branched glands, the glands of Bowman, identical in structure with the serous glands. So here you can appreciate the olfactory epithelium with the supporting cells, and this is the nerve fibers. Now, what are the functions of nasal cavity? First is a respiration, second is a humidification of the inhaled air, third is a filtration of dust particles. Now, what is the physiology of nasal cavity? The nasal cavity has an important protective function in that it filters, warms, and humidifies the inhaled air before it reaches the lower airways. Any inhaled particles or microorganisms are trapped by these hairs in the nasal vestibule or by the mucus layer covering the respiratory mucosa of the nasal cavity. Due to mucociliary clearance mechanism, layer will gradually carry such particulates to the back of throat, down to the esophagus and further into the gastrointestinal tract. Now, what do you mean by mucociliary clearance? The function of mucociliary clearance system is to remove foreign substances and particles from the nasal cavity, thus preventing them from reaching to the lower airway so as to avoid the infection of the lower airway. Nasal mucociliary clearance also largely determines the absorption of nasal drug delivery since the residence time of drug administered to the nasal cavity is limited by the mucociliary clearance. Normal mucociliary clearance or transit time of that normal mucociliary action, that is 12 to 15 minutes. Mucociliary clearance operates through the action of ciliated cells lining the airway epithelium. The cilia beat in synchrony to continuously move the mucus layer up the bronchial tree. Inhaled particles become trapped in the moving mucus layer and are transported into the progressively more proximal airways until they can be cleared from the respiratory tract. Nasal cycle. The cilia drains sinuses by propelling the mucus towards natural ostia. The sinuses are normally sterile under physiological conditions. Secretions produced in the sinuses flow by ciliary action through the ostia and drain into the nasal cavity. In healthy individual, flow of sinus secretion is always unidirectional towards the ostia, which prevents back contamination of the sinuses. Sinusitis is characterized by inflammation of the lining of paranasal sinuses. But because the nasal mucosa is simultaneously involved with the sinusitis, hence rhinosinusitis is now the preferred term for this condition. The maxillary sinus has a single ostium that is a 2.5 mm in diameter and 5 mm in a cross-sectional area, serving as the only outflow tract for drainage of maxillary sinus. This is a slender opening sits high on the medial wall of the sinus cavity in non-dependent position. Most likely the edema of the mucosa at these 1 to 3 millimeter openings become congested by the some means that causes obstruction of the outflow tract, stasis of secretion with a negative pressure leading to infection by bacteria. These retained mucus when get infected leads to sinusitis. Another mechanism hypothesizes that because the sinuses are continuous with the nasal cavity, colonized bacteria in the nasopharynx may contaminate the sterile sinuses. These bacteria are also removed by mucociliary clearance. Thus, if mucociliary clearance is altered, bacteria may be inoculated and infection may occur, which can lead to a sinusitis. Now here we are going to discuss about the definition of rhinitis, nasal mucosa, pathophysiology, classification, clinical features, signs, investigations, complications, and treatment of rhinitis. So what do you mean by rhinitis? It is an inflammation of the nasal mucosa, also known as a coryza. It is an irritation and inflammation of the mucous membrane inside the nose. The common symptoms are a stuffy nose, rhinorrhea, sneezing, and postnasal discharge. The inflammation is commonly caused by viruses, bacteria, irritants, and allergens. The most common kind of rhinitis is an allergic rhinitis, which is usually triggered by airborne allergens such as pollen and dander. Allergic rhinitis may cause additional symptoms like a sneezing, nasal itching, coughing, headache, fatigue, malaise, and cognitive impairment. The allergen also may affect the eyes, causing watering, congestion, or itching of eyes and puffiness around the eyes. The inflammation results in the generation of large amount of mucus, which commonly producing a runny nose as well as a stuffy nose and a postnasal discharge. In the case of allergic rhinitis, the inflammation is caused by a degranulation of mast cells in the nose. When the mast cells degranulate, they release histamine and other chemicals, starting an inflammatory process that can cause other symptoms like fatigue and malaise. In the case of infectious rhinitis, it may occasionally lead to pneumonia, either viral or bacterial. Sneezing also occurs in infectious rhinitis to expel out the bacteria and viruses from the respiratory tract. The pathophysiology of rhinosinusitis is related with the three factors. First is the obstruction of the sinus drainage pathways. Second is the impaired ciliary action. Third is altered mucus quantity and quality. Now, what are the causes for this obstruction of sinus drainage? So, it prevents the normal mucus drainage. First is a mucosal swelling. Second is a local causes. It could be because of nasal polyposis. It could be because of foreign bodies, deviated nasal septum, turbinate hypertrophy, tumors in the nasal cavity, or anatomical variations of the osteomeatal complex. However, swollen mucosa causes hypoxia within the obstructed sinus, and this is thought to be cause ciliary dysfunction and alteration in a mucus production, further impairing the normal mechanism of the mucus clearance. Second cause is impaired ciliary function. In contrary to earlier models of sinus physiology, the drainage pattern of the paranasal sinuses depends not on gravity but on the mucociliary transport mechanism. The metachronous coordination of the ciliated columnar epithelium cells propels the sinus contents towards the natural sinus ostia. Any disruption of the ciliary function results in a fluid accumulation within the sinus. Ciliary action can be affected in case of Cartagener syndrome, where there will be a immobile, or it also known as immobile cilia syndrome. In the presence of low pH, anoxia, cigarette smoking, chemical toxins, dehydration, and drugs, there will be a hampering of ciliary action of mucosa. Exposure to the bacterial toxins, viral infections, cold air, drinking alcohol also can cause the ciliary or hamper the ciliary action of the mucosa. Third cause for third physiology behind that rhinitis is a altered quality and quantity of mucus. Sinonasal secretions plays an important role in the pathophysiology of rhinosinusitis. The mucus blanket that lines the paranasal sinuses contains mucoglycoproteins, immunoglobulins, and inflammatory cells. It consists of two layers: inner serous layer, that is called as a sol phase, in which cilia recover from the active bed, and second is the outer more viscous layer, that is a gel phase, which is transported by the ciliary bit. Proper balance between the inner sol phase and outer gel phase is an critical importance for normal mucociliary clearance. If the composition of mucus is changed so that the mucus produced is a more viscous, as in a cystic fibrosis, or transports towards the ostia considerably slows, and the gel layers become demonstrably thicker. This results in a collection of thick mucus that is retained in the sinus for varying period. In the presence of lack of secretions or loss of humidity at the surface that cannot be compensated by mucous glands or goblet cells, the mucus becomes increasingly viscous and the sole phase may become extremely thin, thus allowing the gel phase to have an intense contact with the cilia and impair their action. Overproduction of a mucus can overwhelm the mucociliary clearance system, resulting in a retained secretion within the sinuses. So this is the classification of rhinitis or rhinosinusitis. Broadly, rhinitis is classified into two types. There is a non-infected and infected type. Again, this infected type is divided into two types, that is acute and chronic. Again, this acute is divided into acute bacterial rhinosinusitis, acute viral rhinosinusitis. Then this chronic is a specific rhinosinusitis, non-specific. This non-specific rhinosinusitis is again divided into atrophic rhinitis, simple chronic rhinitis, hypertrophic rhinitis, rhinitis sicca, rhinitis caseosa, or granulomatous rhinitis. Then here the non-infected is classified into two types, that is allergic and vasomotor. This allergic type again divided into two types, that is a seasonal and perennial type. Again this infected chronic specific rhinitis. Again this chronic specific rhinosinusitis classified depending on the causative organism. First is a syphilitic rhinosinusitis, lepramatous rhinosinusitis, tubercular rhinosinusitis, rhinosporidial rhinosinusitis, rhinoscleroma, fungal sinusitis, leishmaniasis. Now, what are the common signs and symptoms of the chronic rhinosinusitis? Rhinorrhea, nasal blockage, post-nasal discharge, anosmia or hyposmia, loss of sensation of taste, facial pain, headache, pain in upper teeth, a sense of pressure over forehead, face, snoring. So these are all common symptoms we will get in case of chronic rhinosinusitis. Okay, so in this lecture we have covered what is the definition, what are the types, what are the signs and symptoms of chronic of rhinosinusitis. So in next lecture we will cover what do you mean by coryza, what do you mean by allergic rhinitis. Okay, thank you.